The best part of going to my wife's corporate party was getting the chance to drive my Challenger. The worst part was that the faster I drove, the quicker I got there. The party was being held at the company's lodge, and there was a smooth 30-kilometer stretch of road leading to it. No stop signs, no traffic lights, no jams, just an open road waiting for the Challenger to do its thing. It also meant no gas stations or stores along the way. Donna and I had been drifting apart since both our daughters got married. I had hoped for the opposite, but it wasn't meant to be. Donna insisted I accompany her to this event, even though I made it clear I didn't want to go. She usually went to these things alone. Donna enjoyed drinking and I didn't. I sometimes had a beer. She was a social butterfly and I wasn't. Over the past year I had suspected she was having an affair. At that point I didn't really care. I think that was one of the reasons we were growing distant. I was just waiting for the right moment, looking for a way out of this uncomfortable relationship. I needed a way to end our marriage. I have to admit that I might be the reason my wife decided to look for greener pastures. You could say I'm a bit of an eccentric minimalist. I grew up in a very poor family. My brothers and I had far less than most kids our age, and by that I mean things like bicycles, toys, pets, trendy electronic gadgets, and the like. It was almost like being Amish without the religion. I wasn't ignorant, and I fully understood how the normal world worked, but I couldn't bring myself to agree with it. I knew it was important to stay out of debt, to pay your bills and to set something aside for retirement, to live a comfortable minimalist life. You don't have to be a fanatic, but you do need self-control. Allowing yourself a few indulgences can make you seem more normal to most people. Damn, my biggest weakness was my marriage and family. It was really hard for me to find a woman who I felt could tolerate my quirks and accept my uniqueness. Donna came from the same background as me and was used to living a modest life. She didn't embrace it as I did, but she could tolerate it. The longer we were married, the more she seemed to adapt. She became less frugal and more ordinary. I didn't like it, but I understood, especially after the girls were born. To avoid seeming too odd, we bought a small practical house and started wearing slightly nicer clothes. Donna occasionally got her hair done and became quite skilled at taking care of herself and doing makeup. We even bought 2 smartphones from last year's models. When the girls grew up, Donna started working. It was an office job with minimal pay. She needed transportation, so we bought her a small Honda just like mine. Her salary barely covered the car expenses, lunches, and her new wardrobe. It wasn't much, but I was fine with that. My name is William Smith. It's the most common name a person could have. I work as an assembly worker at a local company that manufactures industrial compressors. The job is quite repetitive, but I enjoy it. The position and the pay suited me. Every now and then I was offered a promotion, but I turned it down. I never told Donna. My second indulgence was something I kept hidden from my wife. I felt it was wise to save for retirement. Whenever I had the chance, I bought 1-ounce gold Krugerrands. I had over 30 of them in the safe in the basement, and I was just getting started done. Why? Last indulgence was the 1970 Challenger. My older brother John died while working on an offshore oil rig. He left the Challenger to me in his will. I could afford to maintain it myself, but the insurance premiums were brutal. Donna did well working at Gilbert. She regularly received pay raises and promotions. During her first year, she talked a lot about her job, but then it started to taper off. Now she rarely mentions anything about work or the people she works with. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out exactly what. I hoped to get a better sense of what was going on tonight. The company gathering was something like a retreat. It was a weekend event. I didn't feel comfortable even going to it. I had met all her colleagues at one point or another, and I didn't like any of them that we turned off the federal highway in Holbrook, and I finally had a chance to let the Challenger speed up. It responded exactly as I expected. Donna was uneasy because of the speed, but she kept quiet. Yes, I was definitely exceeding the speed limit. No, I didn't care. Bill, what's the rush? We've got plenty of time to get there. Why don't you slow down a bit? I'm not in any hurry to get there. Full well, I didn't want to go at all. I'm just using this time to give the engine a good run. The car needs to stretch its legs every now and then. Please try not to spoil my mood. This weekend is important for my career. Mrs. Simpson said, it would be important for you to be here too. Marge Simpson was the wife of the company's president, Robertson Simpson. Old money and an old business. Why? What do you mean? Why is it important for me to attend this corporate event? I don't understand. Bill, it's necessary for you to fully understand my new role in the company so that you can give me the support I need to succeed in my job. I still don't get it. I'm sure Mrs. Simpson will be able to explain it to you when we get there. I've always supported you in the past. Why is this any different now in my new role? There are many unique responsibilities. Marge said that you should be introduced to them gradually so you can fully grasp them. It might be difficult for you to understand at first, but she assured me that you'll be thrilled. By the time we arrived at the lodge, my adrenaline was through the roof. It didn't take a genius to figure out what Donna was trying to imply. The weekend promised to be interesting. When we arrived, Donna walked into the lodge, leaving me to carry the bags. I felt like I had been put in my place. "Hey, nice wheels, Mr. Smith, what is it, a 70 or 71? That was Toby Wallace, a young employee at the company. "Hey, Toby, how are you? It's a 70. Toby introduced me to his wife, Bonnie. They were sitting on the front porch, but it seemed like everyone else was inside. I looked around the parking lot and estimated there were about 16 cars and one old beat-up truck at the far end. We spent the next 5 minutes talking about the Challenger. What are you doing out here? Why aren't you and Bonnie inside with the others? They're not really our kind of crowd. Mr. Smith, we were hoping to leave earlier, but Mrs. Simpson insisted we stay. We got up early today to help with the setup. All the caterers left about an hour ago. You'll have to explain what's going on." Something feels off, but I'm not sure what it is. I don't want to upset you, but I think it might have something to do with your wife. Are you staying for the whole weekend? No, that's why I parked my truck on the side of the road, so I wouldn't have to worry about getting out later. With every passing minute, things were getting more interesting. Well, I'd better take this to our room. Let me know before you leave. Okay, of course. Mr. Smith, be careful. Don't do anything foolish. Fortunately, it was just 2 small carry-on bags. When I walked into the lodge, Mrs. Simpson caught my eye, smiled and waved. Donna was waiting for me upstairs, looking a bit irritated that it had taken me so long to come in just in time. "Bill, we have a few hours to get ready for the evening, freshen up and put on something presentable. It's going to be a special night and I want everything to be perfect. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a walk around the house to clear my head. I'll be back in a little while." I noticed a slight smirk appear on my face as I left the room. It was a bit chilly, which made my walk a little more pleasant as I estimated earlier. There were indeed 16 cars, mostly Mercedes, a few Jaguars and a couple of Lexuses. 4 of the cars had out-of-state plates. I was a bit puzzled trying to figure out how someone in my wife's position could possibly fit in with people of this caliber. Or rather, we were definitely out of our league. Something didn't feel right. I noticed Toby and Bonnie loading their bags into the truck. I waved at them and walked over for a quick chat. "I see Mrs. Simpson decided to let you go." "Not exactly. We're sort of sneaking out." Toby said, "I feel really uncomfortable here." Mr. Smith. Toby thought we should maybe stay, but I talked him out of it. Bonnie quickly added, "Could you do me a small favor and stick around until after the evening reception? I'm feeling a bit uneasy too, and I'd appreciate it. I have no idea what's going on, but I don't like it." Great minds think alike. "Don't they, Bonnie?" She brushed slightly at my lame attempt at humor. "I think we can manage that. I had a feeling I was going to like Toby." I really dressed up as my wife insisted. Before we headed to the buffet, our hostess took me by the hand and led me to a quiet corner. "We're so glad you decided to come tonight to support Donna. This is a big step in her career, and it's important that she has your full backing. The increase in salary and benefits is quite significant, and I'm sure you'll be pleased with it. Sorry to ask, but what exactly are we talking about here?" Donna has been a bit vague whenever I ask her about it. She usually brushes me off and tells me to wait until the evening. Nothing to worry about, William. I think she just wants to surprise you. You didn't answer my question. There isn't an official title. I think you could simply say she's a personal assistant. I see. Well, the buffet looks great. Thanks for the explanation. Mrs. Simpson. March. Please call me March. The next hour or so. I spent sampling everything at the tables. Donna was busy mingling with important people, so Toby. Bonnie and I had the chance to spend a bit more time together. We were just finishing up when Mrs. Simpson approached us. "William, Donna mentioned that you brought your little sports car tonight. I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind running an errand for us, while we have a few drinks." I smiled and nodded. "There are 3 cases of wine at the store in Holbrook. They're already paid for, so all you need to do is pick them up. There shouldn't be any issues, but if anything comes up, just give me a call. Be sure to take your phone with you. I'd be happy to help Marge. I'll let Donna know and head out as she walked away. I glanced at Toby, meet me outside in 5 minutes. Donna just smiled when I told her that Mrs. Simpson had asked for my help. Her only comment was, "Don't forget your phone." Funny how both of them were concerned about the same thing. "Toby, I need a favor." He grinned as I tossed him the keys to the Challenger. "Are you serious? Take it to Holbrook and pick up the 3 cases of wine for Mrs. Simpson. I have a feeling there might be some kind of delay, if you catch my drift." Toby smiled and nodded. "Here's my phone, just leave it on the dashboard. If it rings, don't answer it whatever you do. Don't turn it off any questions. How long do you want us to be gone? At least 2 hours, and top off the gas before heading back to the lodge. Enjoy yourselves." It was a bit chilly outside, but at least I had the foresight to wear a comfortable jacket. Now all I had to do was wait and watch from various spots on the back porch. I could see most of the lodge's interior. A thermos of coffee would have been nice, but I hadn't planned that far ahead. I found a comfortable spot where I could peek inside without being seen. Donna seemed to be the center of attention. I still didn't know why, but I had a pretty good idea. She smiled, laughed, and mingled like a movie star. About 20 minutes later, Mrs. Simpson and Donna glanced at Donna's phone. I knew exactly what they were doing, checking my location. Well, thanks to Toby, I was already nearly in Holbrook. They both smiled as Mrs. Simpson raised her hand and started speaking. Unfortunately, I couldn't make out what was being said, but everyone in the room seemed to approve. It sounded like quiet applause. Robertson Simpson walked over and took Donna's hand. They began ascending the main staircase and then paused. He raised both their hands as if in a victory salute, and they both laughed. I heard approving murmurs from the room as they continued up the stairs. I still had about an hour and a half before the Challenger would be back. I decided to take my time and have some fun. I always carried my trusty buck folding knife with me. It was a gift from my daughters about 10 years ago. It had good steel and a sharp edge. I surveyed my target area and decided to start with the cars closest to the lodge. There was no rush. I carefully placed each valve stem cap in my jacket pocket. I didn't want to lose anything or leave a mess on the Simpsons' driveway. 16 cars and 64 valve stem caps that I still had nearly an hour left. What to do? What else could I do for? Cars were locked, all the others were open, so I started again with the one closest to the lodge and removed the registration slips. Some were tucked into sun visors, but most were in the glove boxes. I had no idea what I was going to do with them, but I figured they might come in handy someday that I had to wait another half hour for Toby to return. I decided the valve stems on the spare tires needed to be removed too. Since I had access to the cars, I also had access to the trunks. 20 minutes later, I had another 10 valve stem caps. 2 cars didn't have spare tires. I know it was petty and childish, but it gave me a small sense of satisfaction. I'm not a big fan of confrontation, so everything I did or planned to do was sneaky and underhanded. I didn't have any issues with my self-esteem, so I didn't feel the need to act tough or heroic. I'd let the alpha males take on that role. 20 minutes later, the Challenger returned. Toby and Bonnie both seemed to have enjoyed the ride. He confirmed that there had been a delay at the store, just as I had expected, and it looked like it had been planned in advance. While they were gone, I hadn't received any calls on my mobile. I turned it off and removed the SIM card. They were eager to get back home. I thanked Toby, wished him well, and strongly advised him to find another job as soon as possible. I'm sure the cases of wine were quite expensive. The issue was easily solved. I just placed all 3 cases on the lodge's porch. I definitely didn't want them accusing me of stealing anything. The drive home was relaxing. There wasn't much left in the house. That was important to me: a few personal papers, my laptop, and my Krugerrands. Initially, I had planned to set the house on fire before leaving, but that would have made Donna look like a martyr. I didn't want that. I was back on the road for 2 hours. I didn't feel the need to leave a traditional note or the wedding ring, let her figure it out on her own. I wasn't in a hurry and didn't have a specific destination in mind. I drove for 2 days. It was Monday morning when I called work to inform them. I asked for my last paycheck to be sent to my parents' house in Carlisle. They weren't happy that I quit without notice. I apologized but didn't offer any explanation. You can always count on a good breakfast at a diner. Along the way, I picked up a local classified paper and found an interesting ad for a night stalker position at a nearby supermarket. They were looking for someone to stock shelves from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. After breakfast, I stopped by the supermarket. It was in an eclectic old neighborhood in Chattanooga. I spent the next hour driving around the area. There were a lot of old craftsman cottages and a few mobile homes nearby. I could have been content in a small trailer, but I hoped for something a bit nicer. Then I stumbled upon a sign offering an apartment for rent above a garage. I wasn't interested in the supermarket job just yet, but I didn't want to lose the garage apartment. The garage wasn't included in the rent, but when I offered $50 more per month, they agreed. It was a small apartment with one bedroom and a half bath. There was some basic furniture, a bed, a dresser, a table and chairs. The rent was reasonable and the location was convenient, so I took it. I would deal with the bathroom issue later. At least I had a home for the challenger. The situation at the supermarket was a bit different. They had plenty of applicants, but not enough to feel comfortable leaving them alone in the store overnight. I explained my situation to the owner and didn't hold back. The decision to hire me was made when I offered to work behind closed doors with no benefits and for $1 less than they were planning to pay. They didn't even ask for my social security number. I was happy and they were satisfied. It was only a 10-minute walk from the apartment. I spent the rest of the days settling into my new place. The landlord gave me the access code to his internet, which I thought was a nice touch. After a quick trip to the local mall, I had some kitchen supplies and a small microwave. I also bought bedding and cleaning products. That night I canceled my life insurance policies. I decided not to bother with bank accounts or credit cards. What harm could it do to her? Both of our daughters were married. Now that made my leaving a bit easier. No grandchildren yet. But I'm sure that won't be the case for long, that I called my daughter Laura to let her know I was fine. I asked her to be ready to help her mother, if necessary. Laura knew I had left, but Donna hadn't given her any other information. She promised to let her sister Linda know. I deleted all calls from my wife and turned off the phone again that I needed a shower. Maybe tomorrow. Not everything was perfect. I needed to find a secure place for my gold. I knew what I had wasn't considered significant by most, but it mattered to me for some odd reason. I ended up getting a safety deposit box in Huntsville, Alabama. I hoped they wouldn't be able to trace it back to me in Chattanooga. Of course I was completely wrong, but at least I felt like I tried. It was almost a 2-hour drive, but I didn't mind. The garage door at the apartment was fairly secure, but I installed a new latch and a heavy-duty lock. Just to be sure, I had to protect my California. RDI didn't take me long to settle into the new job. For the first 3 evenings I worked with another man, and then they left me on my own. I didn't need to deal with anything in the grocery or meat departments. The biggest challenge was the frozen food section. After the first 2 weeks, I had everything under control for $20 up front and $10 a month. I got a gym membership which solved my shower problem. The downside was that I had to give them a credit card number. This led to another trip to Huntsville to get a credit card from my new bank. I was starting to realize how hard it was to completely disconnect from the system. Some adjustments were necessary. I had no idea how hard Donna might try to find me, or if she would even try it all to hell with it. I'd deal with that problem if it ever came up. In no time I fell into a routine. I started work at 10 p.m. and finished at 6. It was a 20-minute jog or a 30-minute walk to the gym. Initially I joined mostly just for the shower, but over time I started using the other equipment as well. By the end of the first month I was working out at the gym for nearly 2 hours every day. I was feeling better and even losing some weight. I had never considered myself heavy, but I was a bit out of shape. It was nice to get back into a routine. I felt comfortable in my new job and I enjoyed it. It was repetitive, but at the same time different. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure you know what I mean. I did my job and they left me alone. The gym was also a good choice. In no time, I figured out which exercises I liked and which ones to avoid. I found that I didn't get any enjoyment from lifting heavy weights, since I jogged to the gym every day. I wasn't interested in the treadmills. I started each day with a circuit workout which took about 30 minutes. Then I spent 20 minutes on the rowing machine, 20 minutes on the stepper, and finished with 20 minutes on the upright bike. I never got around to getting a TV, but I did buy a used desktop computer with a decent-sized monitor. My daily entertainment mostly consisted of watching YouTube videos. I rarely cooked, but I noticed my eating habits were changing a bit. Although it wasn't intentional, I found myself leaning toward a keto diet combined with my irregular work hours. I realized I was also doing a bit of intermittent fasting. After 3 months, I was feeling better and had lost some weight. It was time to call my daughters again. This time I called Linda. Hey Linda, it's your dad. Well, it's about time. We've all been worried about you. Are you okay? Yes, I'm doing great. Don't worry about me. I've always been able to take care of myself. I'm just calling to make sure your mom is doing okay. Mom's fine, looks like she got a promotion at work and loves her job. However, she's really mad at you, she said. You abandoned her during her promotion celebration and then left the house like a hurt little boy. Those are her words, she said. You were jealous of her success. Well, I'm sorry, but I have nothing to add to that. Until she's ready to tell you the truth. That's all I've got. She said that things have been a little tight without your income, but with the promotion she's managing well. I'm glad for her. Did she tell you anything about her new job? Just that she's making more money and gets to travel a lot. I didn't respond. After a brief pause, Linda spoke again. Are you coming home for Christmas? I don't think so. I'll try to send something for you and Laura. We don't need or want anything. Dad, we'd rather have you here. Sorry about that. I've got to go say hi to Laura for me. White. I was feeling a bit down. It seemed to me that my daughters didn't understand the situation and believed I was the cause of all the problems. I wasn't happy about it, but I didn't feel the need to explain myself. It was clear that my wife had no remorse. I found myself growing a little bitter from what my daughter said. Donna was doing just fine without me. I still didn't understand why she wanted me to be at home. I finished off my case of black and tan and spent the weekend in a slump. My beer consumption was increasing. I was in an upscale shopping center. It was nice, but not too flashy. Harry had never seen the Challenger before. The topic of my car ownership had never come up. The sound of the engine preceded my arrival, and it brought a few curious onlookers from her office. As she came outside, I walked around to open her door and smiled at the gawkers. Harry laughed as she got into the car. Well played, William, well played. I suppose you'll want an engagement ring now. All in good time, no need to rush. I kept the Challenger under control until we crossed the Tennessee River. Then I started letting her open up a bit. Highway 72 heading to Huntsville is a nice stretch of road, but not the best place to show off. We sat at Dreamland for 2 hours. William. Everyone who was at the lodge that night has been served. What do you mean? It's a lawsuit. The legal term is intentional. Infliction of emotional distress contributing to the destruction of a marriage, is that really a thing? It looks like all the necessary categories have been met. Their behavior was intentional, it was extreme, and it caused you significant emotional distress. That must be why my wife was upset. By that time, each of us had a plate of ribs in front of us. The conversation slowed down a bit. Harry had just finished gnawing on the last rib when she looked up. What do you mean? Your wife was upset. My daughter Linda called me today and said, Donna needed to talk to me. There's a big problem at work, and somehow she's caught up in it. That's all I know. Simpson and Gilbert Company are facing $1 million lawsuit. The other 11 people are being sued for $100,000 each. I'm not trying to be a smart guy, but do you think this will work? Of course. It might not be as straightforward as it seems, but I think some interesting things could happen. I wanted another bottle of beer, but I couldn't risk it because of the long drive home. Harry could take the risk, though, and she enjoyed the moment as she sipped her beer with a bit of smug satisfaction. I felt a bit excited as we were leaving the restaurant, so I casually asked Harry if she'd like to get a room and head back in the morning. I'd love to, but I can't. We could leave early if you want. It's not about that. Let's just head back now. I'll explain on the way home. The first 20 minutes in the car were quiet, and then she started to open up. It turns out that 8 years ago, Harry weighed almost 150 kg. She decided to go on a diet and start exercising instead of opting for gastric bypass surgery. She lost 70 kg. Unfortunately, she was left with about 10 kilograms of loose skin. It took 5 surgeries to remove the excess skin, and now she had scars all over her body. Harry, being brave and honest, admitted that she was very self-conscious about her scars. She had avoided dating and any contact with male friends. For some reason, she felt comfortable around me but didn't know why. I dropped her off at her house, walked her to the door, and gave her a light kiss on the cheek. She thanked me for dinner, and as I left, I noticed a small tear in her. That we continued our platonic dates. It seemed to work well for both of us. My supermarket appeared to be quite popular with the locals. In less than 2 years, they had opened 2 more stores and were scouting for new locations. The owners were serious when they offered me a full-time position as the inventory manager for all 3 branches, however. They insisted that I become a permanent employee, which meant I had to go fully legit. At this point, it didn't seem to matter anymore, so I agreed. Harry was happy, so I was happy too. A few more weeks passed. I hadn't heard from my daughters in a while. Then I got a short text on my phone. Mom got fired. This complicated things a bit now. I had a steady job with a decent salary and Donna was out of work. At that moment, I feared I might eventually get dragged into a divorce. Then things got even worse. William, for a change. I have some good news. Harry was serious and I was all ears. 3 of the 11 people we sued have settled. What does that mean, since we filed for just $100,000? Their insurance companies advised them to go ahead and pay it to avoid any public court proceedings. It was covered by their insurance, so it wasn't a big personal loss for them. You mean we could actually make some money out of this, William? I've already received 3 checks. There might be more. Do you think this has anything to do with Donna's firing? I'm almost certain it does. Will this mess up my divorce? Have you filed yet? No, not yet. I was going to ask you to help me with that. Harry gave me a genuinely wide smile. William, pack a small bag and get the Challenger ready. We're going on a trip to see your wife. We'll leave early Thursday morning. Now I was smiling too. We left at 6 in the morning and checked into the Sheraton Hotel 10 hours later. The Challenger was happy. I called Linda and asked her to invite Donna and Lara to lunch at the Reading Motor the next day. The dinner conversation was a bit awkward. Choosing from the Red Lobster menu was fun, and we ended up spending more than we had planned. We didn't mind though, as it felt like a bit of a celebration. Our conversation was varied and somewhat confusing. Why? We were both carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. We were spending our first night together. We'd been friends with no benefits for over a year. The last thing I wanted was to make her feel uncomfortable. Although I won't go into the details of that evening, I will say that it wasn't nearly as nerve-wracking as we had expected. We were both a little out of our element, but we managed to get through it with the expected results. She seemed relieved that I wasn't repelled, and I was happy that it wasn't nearly as bad as she had led me to believe. We were a pair of happy fools in the morning. We had a late breakfast. Donna and the girls were waiting at the table when we arrived. I was wearing one of my new sports coats with a dark turtleneck. I looked good. Harry wore one of her lighter business suits, something casual yet professional. My wife and daughters looked at me in amazement. Donna, Linda, Lara, this is Harriet Parker, my trusted confidant and attorney. Harriet, this is my wife, Donna, and my daughters, Linda and Laura. It was awkward. But it was the best I could do. Before we could get into any pointless small talk, the waiter arrived to take our drink orders. I'm not hungry. If you don't mind, I'll just have coffee. Donna broke the silence first. I quickly glanced around the table and came to the same conclusion. Why don't you just bring us 5 cups of coffee and leave the pot on the table? The waiter nodded and everyone seemed to breathe a sigh of relief at this decision. It's nice to see you again, Bill. Would you mind telling us what you've been up to lately? Donna gave a slight smirk as she said this, just working and giving you the freedom to find yourself or whatever it is you've been doing. Harry gently nudged me under the table. You were supposed to be there for me and you abandoned me. Maybe you needed someone, but it wasn't me, Mom, Dad. Stop this. I'm sure you didn't organize this meeting just to throw jabs at each other. Dad, why are we here? Linda was firm. I could tell this was going to be a very short meeting. I felt lost. I looked at Harry for any clue on how to proceed. She ignored me but took control of the conversation. Harry reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. She slid it across the table to Donna. Mrs. Smith, this is a divorce settlement. I think you'll find it very fair. I suggest you take it to your lawyer and have them review it. Both Laura and Linda looked shocked. It was easy to see. They hadn't expected this, however. Donna had a wide smile on her face. She didn't take the envelope from Harry, but instead reached under the table and pulled out an identical one from her purse. You idiot. I divorced your sorry ass 8 months ago for desertion. You never got the papers because I didn't know where to send them. It's final, whatever you've got here doesn't matter. You don't have anything I want anyway. Her smile turned into a wide smirk. The waiter returned with our coffee and a full pot for the table. Just as Donna stood up, she smiled at Harry and me and gave the girls a strange look. Before leaving, she left both envelopes on the table. Dad, can we all stay for lunch? I've heard they have really good custard pie here, Laura said. Harry and I chuckled, and we asked the waiter to bring menus. Harry. Laura and Linda enjoyed a great lunch and conversation. I felt like I was eating alone. I've never really understood women well, The girls exchanged phone numbers and promised to stay in touch. Back at the hotel room, I started packing William. I thought we were staying another night. We'll stay overnight, just not here. Hurry and pack your things. An hour and 30 minutes later, we were in Elkton, Maryland. 30 minutes after that, Harriet Parker became Harry Smith. We spent the night in Luray, Virginia. I wanted to drive further, but we couldn't. We now have a house with a 3-car garage. That's another story. The girls told me Donna had a fit when she found out I got $2 million from the Gilbert Company. Donna moved to Iowa. I don't know why. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epic. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.